The next part I'd like to work on is the side. So let's go into Blender and we're going to make this second curve right here, this inner curve, or the curve that's farther up. You know, not the wheel well itself, but this other piece. So let's go back into Blender. And I'm going to hit 3 to go into side view, tab to go into edit mode, and then press Z to go into wireframe. And you see that we actually have the curve right here that we want to make, so that's nice. And I'm in vertex select mode right now, so I'm going to switch to edge select and then press Z to get out of wireframe and move a little, and I'm going to select these edges here so that we can create that outer curve. And I just selected one and then held shift and selected the rest of them. And now that they're all selected, I'm just going to click subdivide. It's going to give us the curve that we need. It's not in the right spot though, so we're going to have to move it. So go back to vertex select mode and press 3 again. Well, actually, I can select this one first because it's kind of hard to select. And then press 3 and Z so we can see where the curve is. And just start sliding these around. And match it up with the reference. Some of these vertices I'm actually going to get rid of because I think we have too many here. And these two are probably the ones I'm going to get rid of. So I selected this one, I'm going to hold shift, select this one, and then select this one, and press Alt M and choose that last. That'll get rid of that one. And we can move this one around a little. I'll probably get rid of this vertex as well. Do the same thing. This one's selected, hold shift to select this one, Alt M, and that last. Same thing with this one. This one's selected, hold shift, select this one, Alt M, and that last. Then this one last one. That should be good for that. Maybe pull this in a little. You just want to try to keep like an even amount of distance between the inner loop and the outer loop. So you just want to try to keep all of them sort of the same amount of distance away. So that's okay. You can see we still have some issues here though. These are pulled in too far, too close to the center. We'll deal with that in a second. I'm just going to hit tab and take a look at the car because it did change the shape a little. So we might have to, for instance, maybe change how these edges are flowing so we can have a better look. So I think I'm going to select this one and maybe join these two and get rid of this edge and see how that looks. Maybe not. That's fine for now. We'll change it later. But this is actually, there's 5 vertices here, so we're gonna have to join these two, I guess, just to get rid of that end gone. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start snapping these vertices to make them all the same distance on the x-axis. That way it'll be a nice consistent curve away all the way around, because right now they're all a different distance away. So I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to vertex snap it to this one so that they're both the same on the x-axis. And now that this one's in the correct position, I can use it to snap. So I'm just going to select this one and snap it to this one, and just continue doing that all the way around until they're all snapped to the same X position, with the exception of this first one I didn't move, so don't move that one. But this last one I'm going to move, and that gives us something that's a little closer to what we want. But it's still not quite in the correct position, so I'm just going to select all these, and we're going to move it. So I have this one selected, hold shift and select the rest of them. Except for this one, I think. And just start moving it until you get it to look the way you want it. And just go with whatever you think looks the best. Because it's not going to be totally perfect, but that looks okay. And now that we have the front done, we're going to do the same thing to the back. So this front is done, the whole curve is there, but in the back we don't have that yet, so we're going to have to do the same thing. So back to hitting number 3 to get into side view, and Z to go into wireframe. Same thing, go into edge select, get all these edges. I selected one and then held shift to select the rest of them, and then subdivide. That'll give us our curve again, and it's the same process. 3 to go back into side view, Z to go into edit mode, and we're going to start moving these into position. And again, we're going to join some of these so that we don't have extra vertices. Like these two need to be joined together with Alt M. And then these two are going to need to be joined as well. Sometimes with these bottom vertices it can be hard to select the right one. In this case it really wasn't, but that's just why I'm looking around, just to make sure that I selected the correct one. So there's that, and we're going to do the same thing because it has that weird curve again. They're not all at the same X point, so we're going to have to snap them again. So I'm going to snap to this one. So just start snapping each one of them, grab the red arrow, hold control, and hover over the vertex you want to snap to. Whoops, did I mess these up? I don't think so. Okay. And now we're just going to select all of them again by holding shift and selecting the ones you want. And to start off, I'm going to just snap all, now that they're all selected, I'm just going to snap them to one of these vertices so that they're at the same exact distance. And that doesn't really look the way I want it to, but that gives us a start. So just keep moving it around until you get something closer to what you want again. And I think that looks pretty good, so I'm going to stick with that. And that's the easier part of the side. That part's done. So now for the harder part, although it's not too hard, so don't worry. It's that indent, remember? So back in Blender, I'm going to hit 3 to go into side view and go back into edit mode and wireframe with Z. We actually have the curve for the indented part. We have the line. We also have the line right here for that straight portion. So let's do that first, this part first. And I usually like to start with the parts that are not indented, because then it will keep the overall shape of the car, and then you can work your way towards the pieces that are indented, and those will change in shape, but the rest of the car hopefully will stay basically the same. So let's make this line here. To do that, I'm going to press Ctrl R and just right click to cancel the movement. We're going to have to move these individually. So select these two that are on the outside and press Shift V to vertex slide them. And continue doing the same thing. Just line it up with that line that's there. Actually, that one's okay, I guess. And you'll see here it kind of meets up with the indented curve right about where we made this this outer curve right here for the wheel well. So just keep that in mind, that they basically meet up. I mean, based on these lines, they kind of don't meet up, but it pretty much looks like they do. So just keep sliding these around. And try to get sort of a straight line, because it's basically a straight line, I think. That looks like that'll work. And now for this curve, we can just use some of these vertices already, some of the ones that we have, I think. So just slide this vertex, and there are two different lines, like there's this line here, and then there's whatever this line is up here. So the line we want is actually a little below it. Just keep that in mind. Like if you have trouble seeing it, you can kind of move the vertex out of the way and then just right click to put the vertex back where it was before. So you can see like right here is basically where we want this vertex, so it's a little bit lower than where it is and a little over. And then move the rest of these into position. We will need to add a few more vertices, but first let's just move the ones that we have. And one thing that you'll notice is that we really don't want to move this vertex because this is part of that outer curve, and if we move it, it's going to get messed up. So instead of moving it, what we're going to do is add in some more vertices here. So I'm going to go to edge select and then select these edges here and click subdivide to give us some more vertices, and then go back to vertex select. I'm going to select this one, shift select this one, and press J to join them to get rid of this n-gon that we just created. And I'm going to select this one, shift select this one right here, and press J to join those so that we have that finish of that curve there. And back in edge select mode, select this vertex or edge, press delete and dissolve the edge. Back to vertex select, select this one, shift select this one and press J to join them. And now we just have to finish these two, slide them down. So I just went back to side view with 3 on the number pad, press Z to go into wireframe, and shift V to slide these down. And that should pretty much give us the curve that we need, except we still have a little more curving here to do. So to do that, I'm going to go back to edge select and make a vertex here, I guess. Subdivide these. And then just start sliding it. And we probably need one more, and that should be enough. So do the same thing in edge mode, select these two, subdivide, slide it over some. And that should give us a pretty decent curve there. But we're pretty much done with these two. So I'm going to select this one, shift select this one, and this one, and then merge them with Alt M and choose that last. And to get rid of this n-gon, I'm going to select this one, shift select this one, and press J. So that will give us that. And we also should probably make this curve here for this black piece here. We should do this first, I think, before we make this indent. So we're just gonna outline it just like we did with that curve by going into edge select mode and selecting all the edges here so that it will give us the points that we need, and then click subdivide and go back to vertex select and start sliding them into position. We could add another point in between these two, and I might just do that actually. I went to edge select, I'm going to select this one and press subdivide. Back to vertex select, select this one, shift select this one and press J to join. And then slide this one a little to curve this some. Whoops, sorry about that. And that gives it a little more curvature. So that's this inner piece. And because it looks like it's actually basically a separate piece from the car, or at least that's the way I'm probably going to make it. I'm going to actually just duplicate that so it stays in the position that it's already in, and then we can indent the rest of it, and you'll see what I mean in a second when I do it. But that's what I think I'm going to do for this. So to do that, I'm going to go into face select mode and select all of the faces for that black piece, and then duplicate them. To keep it in the same position, as usual, just right click. That'll cancel any movement. And we can do one of two things now. We can either hide it by pressing H, or you can separate it and then move it to a different layer. So I'll show you we already know how to hide things. I've showed you that before with pressing H and then Alt H to unhide everything. But I'm going to show you how to move it to a different layer so that you can just keep it totally separate. So to do that, just press P on the keyboard, and we want to separate our selection, our current selection, which is this piece. So hit P and choose selection. And what that does, if I go back to object mode, you see this red line. That just means that there's two different objects now. If I hit Z, we have this object, which I'm going to hide real quick with H. And the other one's disappeared apparently, so I'm going to undo that with Control Z and select this one by right clicking it and press H now. The reason they both disappeared is they were both selected. So this is the piece that we separated, and we want to move to a new layer. And to do that, I just right clicked it to select it, and then press M on the keyboard, and it says move to layer, and just click the layer you want to move it to. You can move it to any of these, but I'm going to choose this second one here, or the one next to the layer we're on. This dark gray square is the layer we're on, and this is the layer I'm going to move it to. So just left click this, and you see it disappears, and that's because it's on this other layer right here. You can only see one layer at a time by default unless you shift select it, like I just did. But if you just click it once, it'll show you layer 2, and if you click layer 1, we're back on layer 1. And we hit our car, so press Alt H to unhide it. So now we have layer 1, which is our car, and we have layer 2, which is this other piece, so it's out of the way for now, and we can deal with it a little later. So back to layer 1, we're going to do that indent. So select the car and press Tab to go into edit mode. I just hit 3 to go into side view, and Z. And the pieces that I'm going to extrude is basically all of this. Even though it's not all really indented that much, we're just going to select all of it. So select one and then shift select the rest of them. And then press E to extrude. Right click to cancel. And what we're going to do is we're just going to move this in on the x-axis. And you'll see from the picture that towards the front, this is where it all connects in. You know, this one connects here, but we want to try to angle it so that it all meets up at the front. That's the goal, at least. So to do that, we're going to rotate this on the z-axis. So I'm going to press R and then Z and just rotate it until basically the front lines up with where it's supposed to be. And if this is indented too far, which I think it may be a little too far, move this first, and then don't forget to rotate again until these line up. RZ to rotate, and just line them up as best you can, because we want it to line up basically perfectly if we can make that happen. And that's fairly close. I mean, it's not perfect, but that's pretty close, and that's what you want. Assuming that's how far you want it indented. And that may be a little too much. So now that that's done, we still have to actually connect these together with the original vertices. So to do that, go into vertex select mode, press Z on the keyboard to go into wireframe, and I'm just going to box deselect all the vertices I don't want to move, or I'm not going to be dealing with. So I just press B, middle mouse click and drag, and whoops, I deselected all of them. Okay, so press Z, Control Z, I mean. Let's try that again. Alright, there we go. So these vertices are the ones we're going to merge to the original ones, but because they're almost on top of each other, it's really hard to see, it's really hard to differentiate the original ones from these ones. So in order to better see them, we're just going to move them. And it doesn't matter where you move them, just get them away from the ones that are right here. And then we're going to merge them. So select them and merge them to the original one with Alt-M, one at a time. And that is that. There's our nice little indent, similar to the indent here. There is sort of like this other indent, like this part is kind of sticking out more, and then this part's more indented. But let's see if we actually have that in our reference. Okay. Maybe. I'm not sure if that is, whoops, the line for that. But I think it probably is. We can deal with that in a second. So I'm just going to press Tab to go back to Object Mode and Z. And we're going to go get that other piece. So select Layer 2, select this piece. We're going to move it back to Layer 1 by pressing M and clicking on Layer 1. So there's that little piece. Interesting. Okay, it is, alright. Now press Tab and whoops. What we want to do is actually press Tab again, get out of this. What we want to do is join these two objects together. So I selected this object, hold Shift and select this one, and go to Object and Join. Now it all should be one object, so press Tab and there we go. There's our little piece here, all separated from the rest of it. And whenever you have two pieces that are completely separate, like there's no faces, there's no edges that are actually touching each other, you can go down to Select and choose Linked, or you can use the hotkey, Control L. and that will select the entire object, or at least everything that's, linked together, as it says. So in this case, it makes it easier to select it. And we're just going to pull it in a little. That's that for now. It's going to need probably some depth to it. Yeah, like it's paper thin right now, and it's not supposed to be paper thin. It's pretty easy to fix. Just press E to extrude. Right click to cancel and bring it in a little. But you'll notice that we actually just messed up the normals on this. As cool as that looks, we just messed up the normals. So we can fix that by just go to select, since we have that piece selected, and we'll do the linked thing again, and that'll select all of it. And then go to mesh, normals, recalculate outside, and you'll see the color changes back to the way it's supposed to be. So instead of that dark piece, it's back to normal. Everybody's happy. So that's that. That's basically the basics of that piece, as well as the indent. We will have to make some changes because this is more flat, sort of. It's a better curve than what we have. We have just basically this curve out and then a curve back down. It's not even really a curve, it's like two flat things, but we'll work on that in a minute. For now, I think this is a good spot to save. So let's go ahead and save this by going to File and Save. Now actually what I'd like to do is just add in a couple details that I missed. And the details I want to add in is, you can see at the bottom here, this is actually pulled in further than where this part is. So we'll just have to pull that in a little. And then I also want to make this piece right here, which seems to be basically just a continuation of this right here, sort of. So we'll work on those two things. And first we're just going to pull this bottom part in. So go back into edit mode by pressing tab, and we'll grab all the bottom pieces by just selecting one and then shift selecting the rest of them, and just pull it in some. And that should be okay. But now that we did that, we get sort of this weird curve here that I don't really like. And to fix that, what we're going to do is just select all of these. I selected these 6 vertices, and we're going to rotate on the Y axis. So to do that, just press R and then Y, and then we'll rotate this a little. And we're also going to move it a little on the X axis. So grab the red arrow and just bring it in a little, and then take a look at it and see how that looks. That looks a little better, I think, but I'm going to rotate it a little more until I get it the way I want it. That looks fine. And since we did it over here, we're also going to have to do it back here. So it's the same thing, but this time it's just these 4 right here that we have to move. So R and then Y to rotate on the Y axis, and then just move it a little if you need to. I'm going to actually look and see what it looks like first. That looks okay for that. And I also wanted to do it in the back, just to give it a little more curve back here. So I'm going to pull these in, these four. I just grabbed the four that are at the end. I'm going to move them in some and then rotate on the y-axis again by pressing R and then Y. So that gives us a nicer curve, I think, towards the bottom. And then the next piece I wanted to work on was that piece that's on the side right here. And I mentioned that it's basically, it looks sort of just like it's a continuation of this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab this, select these 6 vertices, and then duplicate them. And then right click to cancel any movement and just bring them back on the y-axis. And since it's sort of, whoops, I just pressed the period key on the number pad and that will zoom in on your selection. But since this is kind of tilted so that it's facing like away from the car, like if we extruded this it would go away from the car, and we want to just sort of go straight back. What we're going to do to flatten it out is I'm going to scale it on the y-axis. So I'm going to press S, Y, and then 0. And that flattens it out. Just like that. And then I'm going to extrude this by pressing E. And one good thing about this is we actually have sort of a point of reference. If we hit 3 to go into side view, Z to go into wireframe, we actually have the distance right here that this piece needs to be. So we can just drag it out to here basically and select all of these. There's actually 6 of them, so make sure you get all of them. And we're going to pull these out to the end of the car. But I think we need to move it up some, so I'm just going to select the whole thing. I already had this selected, and I pressed B to box select these. Just make sure you have all of them selected and then pull them up to better match. If we take a look at it, it kind of comes to a point here at the end. So we're going to merge some of the vertices to create this point. And this is sort of a triangle with a beveled edge right here at this point. So we're going to make this into a triangle, and we're going to make this into a single point. So first, I just press Z to get out of wireframe. First, let's merge all of these. So select all of them, it doesn't matter what order, and then press Alt M. And choose, this time we're going to choose at center. So that will give us our 1 point. And then over here we want to make a triangle. So I selected the bottom one, and I'm going to shift select these others. And then Alt M and choose at last. We don't really need this point right here, so I'm going to select it and then shift select this point and press Alt M and choose at last. So that gives us our triangle, but I'm not really happy with the shape of it, and it also needs to be positioned better closer to the car. So I'm going to snap this vertex on the x-axis to this other one just to sort of flatten it out. And I'm going to select all of these points so that we can move it more into position. We're actually going to have to move the car as well, because I think the car it's pushed in too far at this point. But let's focus on this first. I'm just going to snap it to here, to this bottom vertex. And this vertex up here I'm going to snap to the top one, so it's more in line with the geometry that we already have. And that gives a better look. This piece is still out too far, so we're going to have to bring it in. And then you'll notice it's kind of getting cut off by this part of the car right here. And to fix that, we can add in some more vertices with Control R. Actually, no, that's not going to work. We're going to have to go down and do edge select mode and select all three of these edges and then subdivide. That'll give us a loop around. And now we can hold Alt and right click anywhere on this edge loop to select it. You'll see it goes all the way around. And then press Shift V, and we're going to move it so it's in line with this part that's curved out. And then we can pull it out to match the curve of the car. And if we take a look at this again, you'll see that I'm not really sure if this is actually a hole where this black is, where it's pitch black, but it might be. So I'll show you how to make that. We're going to go to face select mode this time and select this face. And we're going to press I. And that's going to inset this face. It's similar to what extrude and scale would do, but this makes it so that I'm just going to click real quick before I explain this. This makes it so that from this edge to this edge is the same distance as from this edge to this edge. At least that's how it's supposed to work as far as I understand it. So to make a hole now, we're just going to press delete and faces, and that makes the hole that you see, or at least what it looks like in this. I think it's a hole. I'm not sure why they would actually put a hole there, but maybe there is. But now we still have to move the car because you see there's a lot of space here. So we have to move part of the car out towards this so it's straighter. So I'm going to switch back to vertex select and select the vertices that we have to move, which is these three, and pull them out until they match with our new piece. And then we'll take a look at it to see how that looks. And it kind of created a little strangeness here. So to sort of fix that, we're going to have to move this one as well. And I'm actually just going to snap it to the ones we just moved to see how it looks. And that looks okay. But we might have to move this as well. I'm just going to undo that actually and see if we can do it with just this one. Maybe move this one some and see how that goes. That looks a bit better. Nope, I'm going to undo that. Okay, that looks kind of fine. So I'll leave it like that. And then the next thing is, this is actually beveled. It's supposed to be beveled. It's very subtle, but right here is supposed to be beveled. So to do that, all we have to do is switch into edge select and select this edge. There's two of them. And then go to mesh, edges, and bevel. Or you can use the hotkey, which is Control B, which you can see down here, Control B. And that will let us bevel this edge. And just do it a little bit because you see that this was actually shortening itself as we were doing that. So don't do a whole lot at first. We can move this if we need to. I just hit 3 on the number pad so we can look and see it actually pulled it further away from where we want it. So I'm going to go back to vertex select, get both of these and lengthen it out again. And to make this more beveled, we can move them one at a time with Shift V. I just selected this one and press Shift V, move it a little bit, and then do the same for this one. And actually there's a third vertex here that we can get rid of, so just select it, hold Shift and select this one, and then press Alt M and choose at last. That gets rid of that. And I'll move these a little too with Shift V. Just to give it a little bit more of a bevel. That doesn't look too bad. So that's pretty much it for the details down here. So now that that's all set, we can go ahead and save this. So go to File and Save. And now let's go back into side view by pressing 3 on the number pad, and then pressing Tab to go into edit mode and Z to go into wireframe. And we can see here that we actually have another curve right here that we need to make. So let's go ahead and add another edge loop with Control R and add an edge loop right here. You can see that it doesn't go all the way, and that's okay. I'm just going to right click to cancel the movement. And let's go into edge mode, edge select mode, and select these 3 edges, and then click subdivide. Now let's go back to vertex select, select this vertex, hold Shift and select this one, and press J to join them, and then select this vertex, and hold Shift and select this vertex, J to join them as well, and then do the same down here with these 2 vertices. Select them both and then press J to join. Back in edge select mode, let's select this edge right here and then press delete and choose dissolve edges. And that will give us the basic start of what we want. So I just pressed 3 to go back into side view because I was just looking at it, and then we're going to move these around. Go back to vertex select and select them one at a time and just slide them around and line them up with this reference line that we have. And I'm just doing Shift V to vertex slide. I know you probably know that by now, I'm just reminding you in case. So now that we've lined them up sort of in side view, let's go ahead and go to top view and line them up in that view as well. So let's press 7 on the number pad to go into top view. And this line here is the one we actually want to make. So immediately you can see that these vertices here for that curved part that's sticking out, they need to be moved over more. We actually initially designed it so that they're too close to the center. They need to be closer to the edge of the car. So what we're going to do is we're just going to select them. I'm just going to press, I selected this one, and now I'm just going to press B to box select the rest of them. And we also want to select these. Just make sure that all the top ones are selected. And now press 7 to go back into top view and slide these over. What we want to do is kind of move it past this line, because that's where I think it should be. Or at least move the visible part past that line, because remember, some of these vertices are actually the part that we extruded in, and they're not really visible. Or at least there's not as much as the other ones are. So I'm just going to take a look at that, and it will mess things up a little, and that's okay. We're going to move things around. So I just press 7 to go back into top view, and we're going to have to move the rest of these as well to try to make it a little better here. And these vertices that are right here, they're actually not the ones that are supposed to line up with this line. It's these right here. So we're going to move these over more. And take a look at that. And so far that looks okay. So these vertices that are here, those are the ones that we want to line up. So I'm going to press 7 to go back into top view, and we're going to line these up. I'm just going to do them one at a time and Shift V to vertex slide them. Actually, I think I'm just going to move them, because when you vertex slide it, I'll go to side view real quick. I'm going to press 3. You can see it's nice and lined up. Now if I go back to top view by hitting 7 and do Shift V to slide it and then put it in position, now watch what happens when I press 3 to go back into side view. See, we messed up our side view now. So in this case we actually can't really do vertex slide. So I'm going to press Control Z a few times, or just once I guess is all I needed to do to undo that. And we're going to have to do it a different way. So I'm going to press 7 to go back into top view, and this time we just have to drag them with the red arrow, which is the x-axis. So instead of doing vertex slide, just drag these over. And you can see here there's some further in the back we actually can move if we want to try to, I mean, these I'm not going to mess with just yet, but just try to get the side of it in a better shape. And there really isn't any line right here to follow. I mean, these lines that are here are just the edges that are there. So I'm kind of just guessing, because that's pretty much all we can do. The reference didn't really give us anything to go with. Let's also move these as well. We're going to move these out a little, just to sort of match up with the new geometry we made. And we'll see how that looks. Not too bad. This one's out a little too far, I think. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go back into top view by hitting 7 on the number pad, and back into edit mode by hitting tab and then pressing Z to go in wireframe. And I know I kind of lined these up as the window sort of earlier. I mean, they're not really totally lined up, but I'm actually going to use these for this line that's right here. Again, it doesn't really show that it continues, but I think that it does, at least sort of. And we can take a look at it from top view. Like, this is the line that we just barely made, the one that was close to the outside of the car. And the line we're going to be making now is this one right here. So it goes just above where the window is basically where it starts to connect back in with the rest of the car. So I'm going to line these up to where they should be. I think this time I might just use vertex. Well, no, actually, I'm just gonna move them the way we did earlier. So I'm gonna press 7 on the number pad, tab into edit mode, and Z to wireframe, and I'm just gonna move these with the X axes here and line them up. We can make more vertices later for this window, but for now these are set up pretty nicely to work with that curve. So that's what we're going to use them for. I think that should be okay. Just take a look at it to make sure it doesn't look all crazy. And let's see how it looks in side view. So I just press 3 to go into side view. And actually, I'm going to move this one with Shift V to vertex slide it, just so that it makes it look, the geometry look a little nicer here. And I'm going to move this down a little with Shift V, because I think there may be, like, this line right here kind of gives us where this should be. And I was just vertex sliding those, if you couldn't tell. And let's check again in top view, because I did vertex slide, so it may have moved them a little. This one's out of position, and so are these. That should be good for now. And one more thing that became apparent to me when I looked at this top view image is you can see very clearly that this is basically where the wheel is, and this is that black piece that's sticking out right here. But you can see that it actually curves in quite a bit and then curves back out when it comes back to the wheel. So we're going to have to pull this center part in some to match this car. So to do that, all we're going to do is I just selected this one, and then I'm going to B to box select the rest of this. But since I selected this vertex, I'm just going to deselect it by holding Shift and right clicking it. And I think I actually want to move these as well, so I'm going to select these. If it doesn't work out, I'll just undo it and we'll try again. Oh, and we're going to want to select this vertex as well, because this is actually part of that little triangle thing we made. but we still want to keep it like snug to the car, so we will want to move that as well. So now just pull them in some and we'll see how it looks. It does create a little interesting thing here, but that's okay for now. So I'm going to hit 7 to go into top view just to take a look at this a little, see if it's curved kind of the way I want it. And it is. I mean, it may not be curved as much, but I don't want to curve it too much because it'll mess up the geometry. And it looks like it lines up with this reference image pretty well. So, you know, it's always possible that this one's not as curved as the spider version, so I think I'll just leave it like this for now. And to kind of fix this, I'm just going to go back into edit mode real quick by hitting tab. And I think maybe I might have to pull this vertex in some, but actually back in top view, maybe not, because that's right where the line should be. So we might have to move these a little more. So I'm just going to select all of these. Actually, I don't want this one. And I just did B to box select these and then these. I'm going to try moving them a little bit more from top view by hitting 7 to see if we can get that to go away, that dark color. It's not going to totally go away, and that's fine, but I just want to kind of minimize the effect that it's giving. That looks okay, I think. But maybe I might move these as well. I'm going to try moving these over as well to try to round this out a little. And see how it looks. I think I'm going to try moving this as well. This part may just be sticking out a little too much. Well, I think it is. So there's actually 2 vertices here, and we'll see what happens when I move these. See if anything gets improved or if it gets worse. See, now we have some little strange triangles showing up there. Alright, so that's fine for now. I undid it with Control Z so that it was back to normal. But that looks fine for now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and save this. And then we'll continue fine-tuning this. We may make the window. And we also still have to curve this. So those are on the to-do list. So let's go ahead and save this by going to File and Save. Now what I'd like to do is add a little more detail. Down here, it's actually indented a little more. So we have the original indented part, and then closer to here, it's indented again. You can see this little edge that goes along right here. And you can also see very faintly that there's a line right here as well. So that's the part that I would like to make right now, and you can, if you follow it with your mouse cursor, you can see it actually ends just below where this curve is, this dark curve. So we're going to make this extra detail right here. So back in Blender, to do that, first I'm going to go into edit mode by pressing tab. And what we're going to want to do, since this was actually a little lower, we're going to want to add in some more vertices here to make this line. So go to edge select mode and select these edges where you want to add more vertices. and then click subdivide. And go back to vertex select and select this vertex. Hold shift and select this vertex and then press J to join them. And then select this vertex that's underneath. Hold shift, select this vertex and press J to join them as well. And we're going to move these vertices more into position. They're a little bit too far down at this point, so just hold shift and V and vertex slide these into position. The goal is just to kind of make a straight line, just like we did before on this top one. So now that that's done, we have made an n-gon right here with 5 vertices. So to get rid of that, I'm going to select this vertex, hold shift and select this vertex, and then press J to join those. And we also created some extra edges over here, and I'd like to get rid of one of those. So to do that, go ahead and go back to edge select mode, select this edge, press delete, and choose dissolve edges. So now if we press tab real quick, we can see what we have. And you can also see that this part's darker and then this is really light. So to fix that, I'm going to go back into edit mode by pressing tab and go back to vertex select. I'm going to select this vertex, move it on the x-axis, hold control, and hover over this vertex right here, this bottom vertex, and then just let go of the mouse. I'm going to do that as well with this vertex that's a little higher up. Not that one, this one, if I can select it. I just press Z to go into wireframe if you're having trouble selecting it. And do the same thing, grab it on the x-axis, hold control and snap it again to either one of these, that's fine. But that's not going to make it look perfect. If I go back into object mode, you can see it still looks a little weird. And to fix that, we still have it selected, so I'm going to move it back a little on the x-axis until that kind of goes away. And this just takes a little tweaking until you can make it look nice and, you know, in even color. See, it's still a little lighter on the top than it is on the bottom. You just want to try to make it look the same. And if you're having trouble at any point when you're moving it, you can hold shift and it will move it slower so that you can make fine adjustments until you get the color you're looking for. And for me, it's just taking a little while, but that's okay. Sometimes these things do take a little bit, and if I don't get this, well, that looks, nope. Okay, but you get the idea on that. I'll mess around with that a little, I guess. A little more. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but that's what you want to try to do. Alright, actually, okay, that looks fine. Yeah, that looks fine. We'll stick with that. So now that that's done, looking back at the picture, like I said, this is going to be indented just like we did originally. So we're going to want to indent these faces, and then we're going to rotate around the z-axis just like we did the first time. But it's a very small indent, so we're just going to have to do like only a little. We're not going to want to move too much. So just switch to face select mode, and we're going to select all these faces by holding shift and selecting them. And then press E to extrude. Right click to cancel the movement. Press R and then Z to rotate around the Z-axis and move it just very little. You don't have to move it very far, because we're going to also move it on the X-axis to line it back up. And what we're trying to line up is this. We're going to line up these yellow edges with the original black edges right here, just like we did before. And it can be a little easier to line them up if you go into wireframe by pressing Z, because then you can see exactly where the new ones are compared to the old ones. And right there looks pretty good. So just go back into object mode by pressing tab and then Z to get out of wireframe and take a look at it. And you want to make sure that it's just a little. That's actually pretty good, I think. You don't want to make it as much as this one. It's just a little indent. So that's probably good for our purposes here. And back into edit mode by pressing tab, I'm going to show you the next piece. Like, you can see that it's got this nice, it looks like it's maybe a little bit raised up here, and it actually shows quite a bit from the side. And if you look at ours, it doesn't. So to make it show up a bit more, I'm going to go back into vertex select, and we just want to select all the new vertices down here at the bottom, except for this one down here. Well, actually, first I just remembered, before we do anything, what we want to do is merge these vertices right here back to the original ones. So press Z to go into wireframe and press B to box select, and then this time press middle mouse, because we're going to deselect, and drag, and then release once you have these in the box, so that we only have these left when we're finished. And now, just like before, grab it on the X-axis and pull it in so that we can tell the difference between the new ones and the old ones. And what we want to do is merge the new ones back to the old ones. So select them one at a time, and you're going to want to merge them. This one goes over to this one. So you select one, hold shift, select the other one, press Alt M and choose at last. And then repeat the process, select, hold shift, select, Alt M and at last. Same thing down here, Alt M, at last, select, select, Alt M and at last. So that's that. And press Z to get out of wireframe. And so now what we want to do, like I said, was we want to grab all the new ones that are on the bottom. And it can be kind of hard to tell which one's the new one, because there's actually two vertices right here. So just drag it up and make sure that this part of the car doesn't move. You just want the new part of the car moving. So that tells you got the right vertex. And anytime you move it and you want to set it back to where it is, just right click. Remember, right click cancels movement. So I have the right one selected there, the correct one. And then hold shift and do the same here. Select this one and this one. We're just going to move them up slightly, not too much. That's probably good. Maybe a little more, just to make it a little more obvious. So now we have sort of, it shows up a bit more just like it does over here from the side. But what I'd like to do is sort of pull this one down a little, because I think it probably should be down a little. That looks fine. But now we also have to make it stick out more towards this edge. So to do that, I'm not going to select this one. But what I am going to select is the other two. There's one here, so select that one. And there's one underneath, and select that one. So now we have both of those. And we're going to pull them this way on the y-axis. So select the left click the green arrow and just drag it in a little. try to make the distance, like try to make this new part sort of the same distance away as this, the same thickness, I guess. That looks fairly close. But I actually want it to stick out a little more, so I might just pull this out a little more so that it gets a nice light color to it. And we can do the same thing to the top. I mean, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but I kind of like how it looks when we do that. So I'm going to select this vertex and then select this vertex. I'm just holding shift and pressing the middle mouse button to pan around like this. And then select this one, I believe. And that should be all of them. So drag them down a little. And it's actually dark right there. If we want to change it and make it lighter, we can. To do that, we can just pull it further on the x-axis. So grab the red arrow and pull it out some. That's too much, but that will lighten it up a bit. And there's a little color difference between this one here and this one here. We can change that a little if we just select this vertex and pull it out a little. That will sort of even out the colors as you turn the view like this. So that was mainly the change that I wanted to make here. I might move this vertex a little because I'm not really happy with where it is. So I'm going to pull it back some. I don't think I was supposed to move that one initially. So okay, that looks good. So what I'm going to do is save this. So go to File and Save. Just one little quick fix. You can see right here, this is darker than the rest of this. And in order to fix that, let's just jump into edit mode real quick by pressing Tab. And then select this vertex. And we're going to change the X value up here. We're going to change these last 4. So left click it once and then left click and drag to select these 4. And change them to 5721 and then press enter. And if we look at it again, instead of that dark piece, now we have better matching colors here. So let's save this again by going to File and Save. There's one thing I'd like to change real quick, and what you can see from this view is that it's kind of dark on the bottom, and it looks like it's sort of this triangle that's right here. So we're going to change that. I mean, we're still going to use some of what we did before, so it's fine. This is kind of like what it's going to look like once we're done. I just wanted to give you a before and after. You can decide if you want to do this or not. I mean, you can leave it as is if you really want to, but I like the look of this is what the result's going to be. I like this better than what we have right now. So I'm just going to go into edit mode by pressing Tab. And we're going to want to hide this this curved piece that's here. So select one of the vertices, doesn't matter which one. Hover your mouse over it and then press L And if that doesn't work, which it didn't for some reason, just go to select and choose linked. I know it says Control L, but I think L works, or at least it did when I tried it. And then press H to hide it. And what we're going to do is merge some of these vertices. So select the vertex that's at the top and just shift select the other ones until you get to the bottom and press Alt M to merge and choose at last. Do the same thing over here. Just make sure you're selecting this vertex and not the one that's on the inner side. We don't want that one. We want to merge down to this vertex. So press Alt M and choose at last. And then do the same over here. You may need to press Z to go into wireframe to get this vertex. And then select the other two, Alt M and at last. And at this point we can unhide that curved part. So press Alt H to unhide it. That brings that back. And then over here there's actually two vertices here, so you want to make sure you have the right one. It's the one that's underneath is the one we want to select. And if you want to zoom in on this, anything that you have selected, press the period key on your number pad and that will zoom in on it. Make it easier to view what you're looking at. And I actually have the correct one selected. It's the one underneath that you want. And then select the other two and press Alt M and choose at last. We can actually get rid of this edge here, so go into Edge Select, select the edge, press Delete, and choose Dissolve Edges. Now we have this. It's not exactly what we want, but we'll have to make a few changes. So we're in Vertex Select mode. Select this vertex and bring it in some. And you can select this vertex as well and bring it in a little as well. We just want to give it a darker look to match what it looks like. And I can bring it up a little too, because it kind of comes to a point. So you want them to sort of line up, but not completely. Just go until you get it the way that you want it. That looks pretty good right there, so I'm going to go ahead and save it by going to File and Save. And now what I'd like to do is work more on the top part of the side. The part of the car we're going to be making now is this part right here. So let's go back into Blender and go into edit mode by pressing Tab. Switch to Edge Select, and we want to select these four edges. Just select one, hold Shift, and select the others. Then press Subdivide. And switch back to Vertex Select. Select this vertex, hold Shift, select this one, and press J to join them. And do the same over here. And now what we want to do is press 3 on the number pad to go into side view. And we want to position these better, so press Z to go into wireframe. And start moving these down into position. Just grab the blue arrow and line them up. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to use these vertices here as this part of the window. So we can go ahead and just start pulling them down. That's fine for now. I'm going to jump into top view by pressing 7 on the number pad. And now what we want to do is just line them up in this view because they're not quite lined up yet. And some of these vertices are actually the bottom vertices, so you want to just make sure you're selecting the right ones. And these are the right ones, of course. These other ones are actually on the bottom of the car, so just be careful to make sure you're moving the right ones. And what we're going to use for this part of the car is these vertices right here. So I'm going to move those over as well to this other line. And I actually want to move these back because they don't fully encompass the window right here. So make sure you have all three of them selected, and we're going to move these back so that the entire window is within these vertices. We will have an extra vertex right here. I'm not going to deal with it right now, but we will get rid of this in a second. And I'm going to continue lining these up, even though we're not going to deal with this part of the car at the moment, but I still want to line these up just for later purposes. These back ones I'm not going to touch yet since we're not going to deal with the back at the moment. One thing I just wanted to point out is that from this side image, you can see that where the window is, it kind of continues on until right about back here, which I figured is basically halfway on this black piece, so that gives us a little reference as to where this whole thing stops. And right now we don't have that. We actually have it stopping, basically over here, sort of, and it's supposed to stop way back here. So we're going to have to fix that. And to do that, I'm going to just go into edge select mode, and I'm going to get rid of this edge by selecting it and pressing delete and dissolve edges, because we want it to move in this direction. We don't want it to move in this direction. So I'm going to switch back to vertex select, select this vertex, shift select this one, and press J to join them. Actually, press Control Z to undo that. What I want to do actually is go back to edge select, select this edge and subdivide it, and go back to vertex select, select this vertex, hold shift and select this one, J to join them, and then do the same right here, select these two, J to join them. And if we go back to top view by pressing 7 and then Z to go into wireframe, we can see that pretty much it ends it basically where it's supposed to. It might need to be a little bit further back, but for now I think this is basically where it needs to end. So now what we want to do is we want to just make this a better curve, because this is actually, it's a pretty terrible curve. So we're going to move these in a bit more, make this a bit nicer, try to make it a good transition from here to the window. I think that'll be okay for now. That looks pretty good. So I'm just going to go into side view, make sure everything looks okay. And I think I want to move some of these down a bit. Oh, and these actually need to come down as well because these are the ones that are lined up with this curve line here. So all these need to move down some. And I want to move this vertex down a little too because it's like, it's too high up, I think. We may add some more detail in here just to give this part of the car more curve because I think it probably needs it. And if you ever accidentally click and put your cursor somewhere else on accident, you can press Shift S and then choose cursor to center, and that'll put it back in the center over here. So now what we have is we still have this one extra vertex, so all I'm going to do to get rid of it is select it, hold Shift, select this one, Alt M and choose that last, and now that's gone. We're not going to need this edge anymore right here, so go to Edge Select, select the edge, press Delete, and choose Dissolve Edges, and that gets rid of that. I'm going to go back into Vertex Select and back to Top View to take a look at this. And I'm going to just start moving things around to try to line them up a little better. To kind of get rid of this triangle, I messed around a little with the front here and moved this up a little, I think. Yeah, that helps some, moving that up a bit. I just jumped into front view by pressing 1 on the number pad, and I did want to move these up a little because I think they're a little bit too low. And since we moved the outer edges, we're going to have to move these inner ones too. I'm just going to select them and then vertex snap them by holding Control. When you move it, just grab the blue arrow, hold Control, hover over the vertex, and there you go. And I just press 3 to go on to side view. I'm going to take another look at this to try to line this up, give it a better curve. And one thing I noticed when I did this is that sometimes this makes a really nasty, like it just, the angle of it gets really bad and it gets really dark colored. What you can do to fix that if that happens to you, it's not really bad for me right now, but it might be for you. So just go to Edge Select, select this edge, and press Delete and choose Dissolve Edges. And we're going to change the direction of this edge from like this to over here. We're going to select this vertex, hold Shift and select this one, and press J to join them, and that just changes the angle. So we still have two quads. We had a quad here with 4 vertices, and then over here, and we just changed the direction of the edge, so we still have 4 quads and 4 quads, and that actually helps to get rid of that. And even on mine, which was not bad at all in this case, it still improved it. It looks a little bit better. I mean, from this angle you can still see there's a difference, but overall I think it's just better. So sometimes in low poly modeling, that's all you really have to do to kind of fix how things are looking, is just change the direction of your edge flow. But for now, I think that's pretty good. You can still mess around with some of this to try to get rid of this triangle a little if you want. For right now, I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and save this by going to File and Save. To finish the side of the car at this point, pretty much all we need to do is just curve this better. And this is the part we're going to make. We're actually going to make this stick out like it is right here, and we're also going to curve this black piece a bit better. And there's a couple things I wanted to change real quick. So just hit Tab to go into edit mode and select this vertex if it's not already selected. And I'm actually going to get rid of it by holding Shift and selecting this vertex and then pressing Alt M and choosing at last. And the other thing I wanted to do is just press 7 to go into top view, press Z to go into wireframe, and I wanted to move these two vertices over a little. And now what I want to do is just press Tab to go back into edit mode. And at this point I'm going to hide this piece again so that we can work on the other parts below it. So I'm just going to select this vertex and press L to select the entire thing. And if that doesn't work for you, just go to select and choose linked. Once you've done that and this whole thing is selected, press H to hide it. I'm going to select this vertex, hold Shift and select this vertex, and then press J to join them. Now I'm going to go to edge select mode and start selecting these edges. Select one, hold Shift, and then select the rest of them. Once you have these edges selected, click Subdivide. Go back to Vertex Select. Select this vertex, hold Shift, select this vertex, press J to join them. Select this vertex, hold Shift and select this vertex, and press J to join them as well. And this is the part that it's going to be the outside of this curve. So what we want to do is just start moving these around with Shift V to vertex slide. So select one, press Shift and V, and vertex slide these until you're happy with the shape of it. And one other thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to select this vertex, hold Shift and select this one, press Alt M and merge them at last. And then just continue moving these around until you're happy. Now that we have the shape that we want, we can pull this other part out. So start selecting these vertices one at a time. Select one, hold Shift, and then select the rest of them. And now that those are selected, we can pull them out. Once you're happy with it, this vertex here is actually out further than it should be. So we're going to try to pull it back to try to straighten out from here to here. We want to make this fairly straight. And we're going to have to do the same thing with this vertex on top. Try to straighten it out some. And now that that's done, in order to curve this a bit more, we're going to need to add some more vertices here. So go back to edge select mode and start selecting these edges. Select one, hold Shift, and then select the rest of them. Once you have all these selected, click Subdivide and then go back to Vertex Select. Select this vertex, hold Shift, select this vertex, and press J to join them. And we're going to do the same over here. Select one, hold Shift, select the other, press J to join them. And what I'm going to do with these vertices is I'm going to vertex slide these up some. So press shift, select these three, press shift and V and vertex slide. And then you can move them individually as well to try to get a better, straighter line. And now that we have that, we can go ahead and unhide the piece that we had hidden. So press Alt H to unhide it. And now what we want to do is I'm going to try to line up this edge with this edge down here, and then this edge with this edge, and we're going to create a new one to line up with this. So you can press Alt and then right click to select all these vertices, and if you want to make sure, you can just press Z to make sure you have all of them, and press 3 to go into side view and just vertex slide them down with shift V, and do the same thing here. But for okay, I was going to say, but for some reason it doesn't select all of them, but it did this time. But just make sure you have all of them selected. Go into side view by pressing 3 and then line them up. Oh, actually, this one right here, just select it again, and I lined it up incorrectly. I was supposed to line it up over here. I think. Yes, I was. Okay. But actually, these back two vertices, select those two, press 3 to go into side view again, and we want to line them up with this back part. And the same thing with these back two. And now that we have that, we can add in another edge loop right here. Just press Ctrl R and add in an edge loop, and usually this lines up pretty good, so that's pretty much where we want it. But before we curve this, we're going to want to make sure this outer curve is the way we want it. So right now it's not really perfect, so we're just going to mess around with it a little until we get what we want. That's pretty good, I think. So now we're going to have to line up this part with this other part that we just played around with. And to do that, it's pretty simple. We're just going to select the entire edge loop by holding Alt and then right clicking on an edge to select it. And then move it on the X axis, hold Control and snap it to these outer vertices. And just repeat that process. Hold Alt, right click, make sure they're all selected, grab it on the X, snap it, hold Alt, right click, grab it on the X and snap it, and then do the same thing. And the same thing on top. And don't forget to do the bottom as well. So this is one of the ones where it didn't select the entire edge loop. That's why it's good to check. Just make sure you have all of them and then snap it. But for this bottom one, you probably might notice that the front is actually sticking out a little farther than it should. So I'm just going to select both of these and bring it in some so that it's not extending beyond the rest of the car. These back vertices aren't totally lined up yet, so what we're going to have to do is select them individually and snap them on the Y to line them up. And this one may need to be on the Z as well, just to make sure these line up, and I think maybe this as well. Select them both, grab the Z-axis and snap it. And I might just do that down here too, just because it doesn't look the way it's supposed to. That looks a bit better. And now that we've done that, we can see that we need to move this in some. That looks a little better. And in order to curve this part right here, because this part's pretty curved, you can see that the upper portion is pretty curved right here. So I'm going to just give it a little extra curve by selecting these vertices, these 4, and then pulling it out some. Because that part is actually quite curved up at the top. And one other thing that I did is right here there's kind of a bit of a mess. It doesn't look the greatest. And I just switched to edge select mode and select these 2 edges, press delete and dissolve edges. Then go back to vertex select, select this vertex, hold shift, select this vertex, and press J to join them. That doesn't make a perfect fix, but I think it looks a little better. So that's basically it for the side of the car. I'm not entirely happy with this, so I might just try moving this a little to see what happens. And maybe move these a little as well. You can play around with this yourself until you get something that you like. You don't always have to perfectly match what I'm doing, especially when it's just the curvature of the car. But that's pretty much it for the side of the car, I think. We still have to do the mirror, but usually I do mirrors last, so I think I'll probably just leave that till the end. But for now, I think that's pretty good. So we can go ahead and save this, and then probably move on to the back. There's one more quick thing I'd actually like to do before we move on to the back, and that's just to give this a little more curve right here on the inside. We did add these vertices, but right now we're really not using them since this is still basically flat. So just give this a little curve, and we're going to give this a little curve as well. And that will give this sort of lighter look right here, but I kind of like that. I mean, you may not like it if you don't. You don't have to do this, it's fine. But just try to keep this sort of straight as well between here and here, so that it gives it a better look. I may have messed it up a little. It's okay. But I think that just makes it look a little better from this angle, you know, when you're kind of looking in, having this part curved versus having it flat. So now that we've done that, and once you're happy with it, go ahead and save this and we can move on to the back.